Hello everyone. This is my third time, or maybe fourth, I don't remember, time trying to record this freaking audio because I realized that the entire time my recording program was recording everything in very low quality, so it sounded like the video was being recorded through several layers of cotton. So it's been a while. I think my last video was like a month ago, and you might notice something a little bit different about this video. I'm actually recording the sketch. It took a lot of willpower not to get distracted as I was doing it. I apologise in advance though for any slightly jumpiness at some points, and also I lost some, by lost I mean I stopped recording and then forgot to continue recording. I coloured the skin off camera by accident because I looked up a reference and I forgot to turn it back on. I also forgot to record most of the drawing of one of the main outfits, and the hand, I redrew the hands at some point and I didn't record that, so I apologise in advance for that. I'm also doing a kind of newish style. I mean, by newish I mean I drew like this ages ago, but I don't tend to finish drawings that often. Digital drawings at least, so you probably have never seen it. And by that I mean I definitely have never seen me draw like this before. So basically now I'm drawing a sketch and then I turn it to multiply and then put the colours underneath it and then kind of paint from there and then do the line art on top when I'm done with the painting. Though this picture didn't really have that much painting in it, because it's a reference sheet, brings me on to what I'm actually drawing. It's a redraw slash redesign of a character of mine, Winter, and you probably know him because I do have one of my, I think it's the first video I ever did a voiceover of, was a speed paint of him, and it's the picture I'm kind of redrawing. I say redrawing loosely, I'm basically just redesigning him and it needs a new reference sheet. You can see occasionally the old one will flash up every now and then, because it's an old outdated reference, but it's still a reference. I don't recommend you go watch the old video, because basically all of the information in it is kind of out of date and old, and also the art is really bad. I'll get to that in a moment. And also it was the first video I did a voiceover of, so I was very, very not confident in myself. But basically some basic information about him. His name is Winter Callan. He's an OC from my original universe, Third Time to Charm, which is kind of like high fantasy world. He's the best friend of the main character, who's called LAKEY. He's 19 years old. He was born on the 14th of November. He's gender fluid, so his gender basically changes. You can look it up if you want to find out more about being gender fluid, but he's also pansexual grey romantic, so he very, very rarely feels romantic attraction, and sometimes not particularly strongly. When he does, it could be towards anyone. My voice hurts. Yeah. I might at some point make like a proper bio for him, maybe on DeviantArt, but I don't really know. Okay, so the old one, and I might put it up on the screen at some point, but the old, I have a lot of issues with the old one, the old reference sheet. First one being, it was just a bad drawing, bad anatomy, bad drawing. It'd been, I remember I was very rusty at digital art because I hadn't actually done it in a very long time, and so I was kind of like, and then I kind of went straight into like a full piece, or like a full reference sheet, and it wasn't very good, and I didn't look up references for the anatomy, which is never advised. Admittedly, I didn't look up references for this, however, just thinking back for a second, however, I do have a better grasp of it now. Yeah, I really should have done that though. Oops. The other thing is that it didn't really, I mean, it also, on top of just being like not a great drawing itself, the design wasn't very good for a number of reasons. The first one being, it just wasn't very appealing to look at. I don't really know how else to explain it. I just hate looking at it. It just doesn't look good. I think one of the reasons maybe is because it's all like either very light colours or very dark colours, and then there's like nothing in between. There's no like mid-tone kind of colours, which I don't know if that's exactly why it looks bad, but I feel like that adds to it. Also the colour palette was just weird and off. Like, I'm pretty sure the old colour palette was basically just, it was just red and white and black, and that was and then a tiny little bit of blue, and that was kind of it, like, in general, and ugh. I want to say he had a warmer colour palette, but he really didn't, because everything just looked cold. That might have been the way I shaded it, but I don't know, no, I did not enjoy it. I remember even as I was drawing it, I didn't enjoy it as I was drawing it, and I was already shading though, so I couldn't like stop. I just had to deal with it. And there's also just the fact that in the world itself it wouldn't make any sense he would wear that. First of all, it is a high fantasy. I'm 90% sure when I was looking at references for his clothes, because I did look up, I say I looked at references, I looked up images for inspiration, and I'm pretty sure I just looked up taekwondo or karate outfits or something, and then based it off that, which is probably not smart, considering that I don't think either of them technically exist, or at least as they do in the real world. And I was like, oh no, he might be cold if he just wears that all the time. So I just like stuck a long sleeve shirt on underneath. I don't know what I was doing, honestly, it makes no sense. And then I was like, oh yeah, he needs a place to keep his stuff. So I added like a tiny little side pouch thing that wasn't even part of his belt. It was like separate from his belt, and his belt was this weird thing. I must have seen it on the design online. I don't really know. It really sucked. And it didn't fit like the way I'd always imagined the world of Third Time's the Charm. It just did not fit with the feeling I wanted to give. So the things I changed in the new one, something very big actually that I didn't mention, I should probably mention as well for the old design, something I never used to do when I was designing characters a little while ago, was I never thought about like the body type or like specific facial features, I guess. And I say that because maybe I think like, oh yeah, maybe this character is taller, or maybe this character has slightly broader shoulders, but I didn't do it very well. Like, that was basically the extent of it, and I was always scared to like push it a little bit further. So now I'm trying to put in more effort to like make characters visibly very different in terms of body type as well. So for example, for Winter's body type, his shoulders and hips are roughly the same width and his waist goes in a bit. Whereas his friend Ellery is first of all much taller than him, like almost 5 inches. Ellery is like 5'11" and Winter's like 5'6", so there's quite a bit of height difference between the two. And Ellery has very broad shoulders and then a much thinner waist and hips. And that's kind of like a very quick example, but like that's kind of important to think about. And that means that if I would previously, if I were to draw the two together, they would have almost identical body types. Now, if I were to draw them, they would be like visibly very different. You know that like the test thing, I don't know if it's a test, but like the thing people do to see if they're like, oh yeah, if you take off the character's clothes and get rid of their hair or whatever, and you make them a silhouette, then they should all look like visibly very different and like recognizable. Yeah, you should try and aim for that. I always used to ignore that piece of advice, but it is very important because it makes your characters very recognizable. Oh yeah, facial features. And in terms of specific like facial features, I paid attention to eyes only when I was designing characters. I would like say, oh yeah, they have like this eye shape, and then I would just leave it at that and think that was enough and just draw kind of like a generic face. And I think it's kind of helped that my art style is much more detailed now. My art used to be much more simple, and that was mostly just because I didn't know how to draw it more complex. I'm still working on making it more complex because I kind of prefer that look. I used to just draw noses the exact same way, for example, and I'm still kind of struggling with trying to show different nose shapes from the front, but I'm working on it, you know? And also I used to draw all the characters' lips the same, and not everyone's lips are the same, and it's things like that, and also I was not good at drawing different face shapes. And on top of redesigning him, I'm also kind of rewriting bits of him. At the same time, I'm, like, kind of changing not the entire story of Third Time's a Charm, like, the gist of it is still kind of there, but I'm kind of editing the story a whole bunch, and the world, and because of that, I did change his backstory a little bit, but also because his backstory, some bits of it really didn't make sense and line up with his design. So, for example, the scars, not the burn scars, the burn scars look awful in the first one, but that's just because I didn't know how to draw them. I still don't really know how to draw them, but I'll learn. I'm talking specifically about, like, in the first, like, the ones on his face, mostly, like the pale ones. First of all, because of the way I drew the first one, his skin is so pale that you can barely see it, because you can only go so much lighter than almost white, pure white colour that I used for the original. And Winter in this one does have, like, very, very pale skin, but I added, like, so many freckles, and I added blush and the scars that, like, everything basically stood out. In the original one, it just didn't, like, I didn't add enough blush or detail, and I kind of just added the freckles on top of, like, almost complete whiteness, and the freckles just look grey, which is really odd, but I'm getting off track here. The thing I was talking about before, in the original one, the scars are supposed to be from, like, I'm assuming a sword, I don't think I ever specified, but he got attacked by, like, someone in an evil army or whatever during an attack on the place he lived, which isn't a thing anymore, but shh. But that's just what I can't imagine. Like, if you look at the scars, I've kept the scars, like, mostly the same. All the ones on his face, excluding the one on his lip, are all supposedly from the same incident, right? Except, how the hell... I can't imagine the way. I'm trying to think of it as I'm watching the speed paint. How would you get a bladed weapon to make those kinds of scars in, like, the middle of a, like, maybe, like, one? But, like, 3 in the same place, one across the bridge of his nose and one off to the side, makes no sense. I can't think of the way that would work. So I changed it, and now they're claw marks, which I'm pretty sure... The first time I ever designed Winter, they were supposed to be claw marks because he was attacked by something like a monster. And then I changed it, but I didn't change the design to, like, match the different backstories. So then he still had claw marks, but they were from something that didn't have claws. So I changed them back to claw marks. It makes more sense in almost every single way. I also, when I was designing the main outfit, like the one on the right, I added a lot more of the pouch things, and that was mostly just because he carries a lot of stuff. I mean, he would need to carry more stuff. It didn't make that much sense that he'd only have one pouch to keep everything in, because he carries a lot of very small things. Like, first of all, he needs to carry money, and he needs to carry, I don't exactly know what to call them, I guess fantasy passports. He needs to cross borders because he's travelling between countries. And he carries, like, darts as a weapon, like, things to throw, and probably knives as well. And he carries little things of poison to dip the darts in so they're poisonous. And it's things like that, and there's just no way you could fit all of that in the one pouch. Unless, like, I don't know, I'm trying to imagine, it's like an action scene, he reaches into, like, the pouch to pull out, like, a dart, and then, like, his passport and all of his money falls out of his pockets as well, probably his keys, and he just chucks it, and then he has to, like, pick everything back up. Makes no sense. Just keep everything in different pockets. Also, I just kind of added more detail to it. Like, the old one was super simple, and the new one doesn't really have... I don't know how to explain it. It's all like, oh yeah, it's one entire just plain piece of fabric for a lot of it, especially on the one on the left. I I didn't spend that much time thinking about the one on the left. When I was sketching it, I was like, oh yeah, I'll add more detail to this, and then I just kind of didn't. Oops. On the one on the right, I tried a lot harder to kind of make it more interesting, so I added like the thing with the sun on, like the sun design. I don't exactly know how to explain it. And his belt has the fire on it. See, it's appropriate because he has fire magic. There's more to it than that, but we're just, no. I could have definitely added more detail to some of the clothes, but I guess, no. But, I could have definitely added more detail to the clothes, but, I'm proud of how well I did. I'm not particularly good at designing outfits at the best of times, so... Also, I know they're both kind of small, but I really like the fact that I made him have curly hair, and I really like that I drew his freckles better. First of all, his freckles, in the first one they look grey on his skin, because I was very bad at using layer functions. So on this one they're much more kind of like the way I always imagined they'd be, and they look a lot better now, and also his hair being curly, I just love it. It's so fun to draw. It takes so long to draw. God, it takes long to draw. I swear like half of this video is just going to mean like, right now I'm doing the lineup for the hair when I'm watching the video back, and it's taking so long, but God, it was so fun to do. When I draw hair like this, God, I kind of just lose myself, and I'll just like draw for like hours, and I'll be completely focused on it. It's so fun. Yeah, I always have fun drawing curly hair because it's just, and especially with him, there's so much hair as well. So yeah, it took like half of my life, and I had terrible back pain afterwards from like hunching over my drawing tablet, but God, it was very, very fun. In terms of the new one though, I am very happy with it, but there are some things I could have done better. The first thing being the things on the side. You can't see them yet because I actually sketched them and do them much later. One of them is an eye, like a close-up of his eye, but I kind of messed up the colour of the eyelashes. His eyelashes are supposed to be like paler now, but I kind of drew them darker. Oops. So... but I kind of wanted to show off the weird way his pupils, or like his eyes, his irises and pupils. What am I saying? His irises are blue, and then his pupils are like pale blue or white-ish. And I kind of wanted to show that in a bit more because you can't really see it in the new design. And I also drew a profile view of his face, like from the side, and I'm not very good at drawing profile views of his face, and I kind of gave up by that point, so it's not even done. It's still kind of a sketch, and it's gross and messy, and I hate it. I did a much better one in my notebook the other day, but I can't really do anything about that now. I'm still not very good at sketching digitally. I need a lot more practice with that. I also, I was talking about having like better, like different features, I guess, but it was actually kind of hard to show some of them, especially like the facial details. I'm not entirely sure how to show them from head on in like lighting that is, because it's a reference sheet. I had trouble like showing because I can't use like a very bright light source to like have dark shadows, because that's not very good to have on a reference sheet. I'm not particularly fond of like having lots of lighting effects on a reference sheet, because it kind of, you can't really tell where all the colours are supposed to be. And since the pose was like head on and with not a particularly strong expression or any sort of pose, it was a little bit more difficult. Next time I could also try and draw him from different angles, but oops, like a full body from a different angle, I mean. But I can work on that. Also, I only did 2 full drawings of him, which is kind of a shame because he has both different hairstyles and different outfits. I kind of only drew kind of like an underwear one, and then I drew like a traveling, like a general outfit that he would probably wear quite a lot when he was on the quest, but I didn't really draw like a casual one, and I also didn't draw him wearing his dress, he wears skirts and dresses quite frequently, and I'm like, God, he always looks so nice in them, but God, I hate it because I can't design them very well. And then when I finished this and I was like, oh wait, I didn't draw him in a dress, oh shoot, I should have done that, because then I'd have like a design to do, like if I didn't know how to design a dress. I'm bad enough at designing outfits, but I'm terrible at dresses and skirts, so having like a reference for that would have been really useful, but I guess I just didn't. Oh well. I drew one like afterwards, well, next morning because I finished this super late at night, but I did a little doodle of him wearing a dress the next day, and that was nice. I'm not entirely sure what the takeaway from this whole video is. I think it might just be like, think through your designs before you make them. Like, make sure the things in the design have like a purpose. I think that's basically the way I write characters as well. It's like, oh yeah, why are they like that? It's like, oh yeah, this character is shy. Well, why are they shy? Like, what makes them want to like, what makes them nervous about speaking to new people? What makes them like this? And even if it's just like, oh yeah, they're worried about blank thing, interacting with new people, well done, you just justified that. And, or like you could say, oh yeah, this character's scared of dogs, well, why? And it doesn't necessarily need to be like, for things like that, it doesn't necessarily need to be like an incident that caused it, but it could just be like, what's their justification? Like, for example, I'm scared of spiders, and I was never bitten by a spider. There was no like incident in which I had a traumatic incident with a spider and therefore I'm terrified of them now. And I used to like them actually. That's a fun fact about me. I used to really like spiders when I was like 8, before I got scared of their long creepy legs. But yeah, the thing I hate about spiders is their legs and the way they move. I hate them so much. There was one in my room the other day, that was horrifying. It was actually dead, but I didn't know that. Mild tangent about my fear of spiders, but like yeah, if I were a fictional character, well done, my author just justified why I'm scared of spiders, even if it's not like logical. And for Winter's old design, I basically just said, oh yeah, he does martial arts, so he wears something a bit like a martial arts uniform, clothes, whatever, that you would wear in the real world, even though he's from a completely different universe to our own. But in the new one I was like, okay, so he has pockets to keep all of his stuff in, he wears these boots, he wears like boots because he needs to walk around a lot, the fabric would be lightweight, as in he doesn't wear armor because that gets in the way of his fighting style, it would be too heavy for him to do the sort of things he usually does. He ties his hair up in this way because blank. He keeps his hair long. For example, like, he keeps his hair long. There's no, like, logical reason for him to keep his hair long. It's kind of a nuisance, but, like, he just likes having his hair long. And even that's enough justification for him having it. There's things like, oh yeah, why does he have burn scars? Well, he fucked up when he was doing magic, and he burnt his arms. You know? Even just small things like that. Why his eyes weird? Well, because if you go back far enough in his family, there's a spirit. Yeah, so you kind of just need to justify things and think through, like, oh yeah, what does this character need to have? And then when you design them, you think, oh yeah, is this the way that they would be? Is this what they would want to have? Is this useful? What would get in the way? But yeah. That's all I really had to say, I think. I'll try to upload more regularly now that I have more spare time, but God knows how that'll work out, so there's still a whole bunch of the video left, probably more when I finish editing this audio, so I'm just gonna let music play over that. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, comment what you want to see next if you have any particularly strong feelings. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye!